the reason why, kind of try to understand. A lot of them are asking why you would go to Hollywood, because we have
day.
Exactly, and we have a more eventful night tonight, because we want you to call us on tonight's edition of Diamond Live. Dr. Tsele will be joining us shortly, and if you've got any questions in relation to coronavirus, now is your time, and just find out what you can, because it is upon us, it's within Zambia, and it's only important that you face the reality that this is a part of our lives and we must be able to deal with it. This is a time for us to be responsible citizens and protect ourselves and our family and everybody else that is around us. But let's take a look at the day in now. All right, so the coronavirus is here, and there's so many measures being taken in place, and that's why that's one of the things we're taking a look at in today in a snap. The fact that the coronavirus is here, and well, the University Teaching Hospital today did issue out a statement, and they were stating that people are not. There's gonna be restriction on visits at the University Teaching Hospital. Mm-hmm. Very understandable, because it gets quite crowded. So I know people love to see their loved ones, but I think to some extent, let's be very cautious how we treat this situation, because it might just backfire.
Yeah.
Yeah. But on a sad note, though, 7 people have died in Pemba in a road traffic accident. I saw this on one of my friends who was there. Very sad accident. Look at that.
Carried off into a cliff.
Yeah, 7 people have died in that accident, and yeah, we just wish people could be safer on the road, because it's very unfortunate that people are going to die.
Yeah. I mean, it's devastating to see how many accidents have been recorded yearly. Statistics, I think statistics are quite devastating. But I love the fact that, I mean, there's road safety now. It's much more sensitized. I mean, organizations like the Zambia Road Safety Trust, I think, have come out. We did speak to them, I think at the beginning of the show, and we're talking about how much we need to take certain measures. Just, I mean, simple rules on the road. I mean, don't speed, don't take alcohol, or if you want to overtake, make sure it's not at the curve and all of that. But, well, an accident, again, remains an accident, but we need to ensure that we protect ourselves, especially when we're on the road.
And it's funny that we have a lot of people that are driving and are unlicensed, to be very honest. And also, I feel like when the cops are doing those, traffic checks and stuff like that, they rarely ask for the license. They'll probably just check for, is your Musongo okay, and all those documents. I'm saying this because I'm a victim. I've been there where Bani Minika, and that time I never had a license. Bani Minika, they'll just be like, oh, okay, pass. You should ask these things.
So,
okay, not that.
So why are you driving without a license?
At that time. I was. No, I do have a license now. Very much licensed, certified.
She had a provisional license.
You know what I mean? No, but then I never even had.
She got a provisional license.
No, I got my cousin's car, for crying out loud. Then there's a camera road behind me. Anyway, because people chitika, you know what I mean? They only care if your papers are in order, and they'll just leave you be.
Yeah, true.
In Kanyakti Munda ends up Iba Road, Adibe license, if you see that.
At Pakacho, the confident.
Imagine, Bantualiko 10 years Mundanaka, I use the Ibe license because Siba phones. And in fact, a license young and me road. A lot of people are even using dubious ways. The system is corrupt, I'll be very honest with you. But that should not just leave us into a place whereby any Jima Jack can be on the road without a license. Nah.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to be speaking with Dr. Tsele. He'll be joining us on tonight's edition of Diamond Live, because we want to just explore all options when it comes to coronavirus and some of the questions that you might have.
Still wondering how you can own your own home? Build or purchase your dream home with the help of a mortgage from the Zambia National Building Society and enjoy 0% legal fees, 0% survey fees, 0% administration fees, and competitive interest rates. Plus, get up to 100% financing and up to 60 days repayment holiday. What better way to buy or build your dream house than with the ZMBS Nyumba ya Banja mortgage promotion? Invest in your future today and bring your dream to life. For more details, call us on 0954 292 904 or 0954 295 168 or email marketing@zmbs.co.zm or visit our website on znbs.co.zm. Zambia National Building Society. Shelter through saving. Terms and conditions apply.
Tawi ya bwela yopanga nyumba ya banja.
Welcome back to Diamond Live. Of course, joining us on set right now is Dr. Samson Chisel. We're going to be talking a little much more about how we can prevent ourselves from the coronavirus. He is from the Zambia Medical Association. He is present. Good evening. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here.
Of course, let's start off with now that, I mean, a lot of people seem to have anticipated it. Many seem scared at the moment. I mean, what should be going through your thoughts right now?
Well, I suppose you're talking about the 2 cases of COVID-19 that, that have been confirmed this morning, just for the avoidance of doubt. I do think that there are segments of our population, I think, that anticipated that we would have this breakout in the country. Since it was first reported in China sometime 31st of December last year. And I think that following that announcement and the spread in China and beyond, we saw that government took some measures to try and mitigate, if you will, the spread into Zambia. And I think just by taking those measures, it's an indication to me that in fact government was thinking about the possibility of having a case in Zambia. I'm talking here about information, for example, that has been put out to the public through the Zambia National Public Health Institute, which falls under the Ministry of Health, under the guidance of Professor Konga. And also we saw, even before the first case in Zambia was announced, a lot of the first 2 cases were announced this morning, we had seen also a response in the clinical area in terms of preparing the medics on how to respond to this disease and so on. So yes, I think there was that segment of the population that in fact was preparing, and I think I happen to come from that group. As a profession, we have, I think, always known that it was just going to be a question of when, not whether or not we would have the disease enter this country. And so, as an association, would like to commend government for responding positively and effectively to the threat then and the actual disease now, in terms of some of those measures that I've spoken about. And I think the most important thing I would like to let the public know is that we need to be calm, both as health practitioners, but also as the general members of the public, to understand that something is being done about this disease, but also to understand that this disease is the coronavirus, or COVID-19, as it's now being called, has been spreading, as I said, for the last several weeks. We now have close to 200,000 plus cases worldwide that have been infected, and I think close to 8,000 deaths. And I think that the measures that we've seen in countries like China, for example, were those of trying to contain the disease, if you will, in the areas where it broke out first. By containment, I mean that, issues of travel restrictions, for example, issues of ensuring that, contact with people that are infected or contact with people who are coming from affected areas. I think those measures have already been outlined, and the public must continue to abide by those by that guidance. I think that this is not a time for us as a country to apportion blame on one another. I think that this is a time that we need to come together. First of all, identify some of the gaps that are available, and then be sure that we are working towards narrowing those gaps. So I think for us that's the most important message we're giving out there to the public, to be calm, to abide by the guidance that has been provided by the Ministry of Health through the various statutory instruments that were signed, I think, just the other day, particularly with, congregating, avoiding crowding and so on. And as far as crowding is concerned, I wanted to quickly mention that the issue of determining whether it's crowding in church, for example, or crowding in a bus, or crowding in whatever environment, should not arise. I think that message must be very clear. It's about crowding. It doesn't matter the circumstances, whether it's funeral, etc. That message must be.
But the number really matters.
Yeah.
But of course, we'd have to give the public a minimum time to actually ask you the questions, because I mean they're the ones that are the very, very affected at this point, and we'd love to ask you to call us in and give us your thoughts, whether on Facebook, whether live on text or via phone. And after how long? I mean, there's been a lot of misconception about how long could someone get the virus. I mean, after shaking your hands, how long can it stay on your hands, and all of that. Could you give us clarity around that?
Sure. I wanted to also mention that in terms of, just before I answer that question, in terms of measures to prevent the spread of the virus, I think we are talking here about containment. In other words, as I mentioned, people not moving about and whatnot. But I think that we should understand that in all the areas where this, most actually of the countries where this virus has broken out, the disease has broken out, including African countries. If you talk about I believe Egypt was first.
I'd like you to hold your thought, Doc. We've got James who's calling us for the first time on the show. Good evening. Within Lusaka. He's calling us from within Lusaka. Hello, James. Don't forget to turn down the volume on your TV when you're calling us.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. How are you?
I want to know the doctors. Why did they just
Hello, James. James, we'll need you to do us a favor. We'll need you to do us a favor. Please turn down the volume on your television set. It's giving feedback into the studio.
And I think we should emphasize that please, as you call us in for us to have an effective conversation, please turn down the volume on your TV, or else you might
have to let you go.
Yeah, maybe
on that call.
Just before Chiswa comes in, I would like to find out. I feel like a lot of people anticipated this, like psychologically, because having our neighboring countries been infected and stuff like that. I would like to find out from you, is it possible that we could have more than 2 cases? I know that there have been preventive measures at different points of entry in our country, but is there a possibility that there should be more people out there that have and they don't really know? I know that they've been doing the most that they can, but maybe just making people understand. Is there that possibility?
So just yesterday, the World Health Organization Secretary General, Dr. Tedros, gave an electronic press conference, so to speak, and he was emphasizing that the World Health Organization is recommending 3 things. First, test. Number 2, test. And number 3, test. So I think that there's need for us to ensure that everybody who is suspected, who meets the criteria, if you will, for a case, so to speak, needs to be tested. And that way you are able to isolate this person or these individuals and therefore prevent spread to other people. If somebody presents with symptoms, for example, or a history that suggests that they might have COVID-19 and you are not able to test them, then it's possible that they could be transmitting that infection. But I wanted to just ride on that question again and just finish the point I was going to make, that what we have seen in most of these countries, that South Africa, for example, Egypt, Algeria, Nigeria, etc., and now there are more countries, these diseases were imported. They came from Italy, for example, and other places. So in terms of the measures that we as a country have embarked on, I think that we must, I think now is about time for us to consider strongly restricting border entries for people and travelers who are coming from areas where there is community spread. I think that as a country, I think we've been very brave. For example, we've closed schools, we've done a lot of measures and so on. I think that as an association, we do think that this is about time. We went all the way and not wait for the number of infected cases to
Let's push in Monday, Innocent. We'd love to get as many thoughts tonight, and I hope that, Doc, you'll be bracing yourself to answer many of these questions. Good evening, Monday. Thank you so much for joining us.
How are you, please?
Very well. Please go ahead with your contribution under a minute.
Yes, actually, I have one question to the doctor.
Go ahead.
Yes, please. By the way, good evening, doctor.
Good evening, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Ngati wakupeza na yamene coronavirus yamene tambira yamene yatindene napo.
We're listening. You can go ahead.
Could you
Hello?
stop, Alamonde, could you
you-
stop listening from the TV, turn down the volume, and
Yeah.
listen from the
So,
phone?
nifunza ati vakakutenga kukupereka kuma areas kwamene vachekingira ko vantu vamene vari na coronavirus kuliko mankwala oro iliko bwanji vakakutenga kukupereka kuma areas kwamene konje funzo yake nifunza.
Okay,
Alright.
thank you,
Zikomo,
Jim.
Mazaya,
Innocent.
or Doctor.
Can I answer that?
Yes,
Nyanja?
yes,
Yeah,
please.
please.
Yes.
Okay. So, pali nontao pamonde kulibe mankwala ya kuti muntu akadwala COVID-19 amene yozampasa kuti yapola yayi. Chalo chonse kulibe mankwala yoposesa ya matenda. But kuli pamene wangachiteva kuti vingalengese kuti muntu asankale na problem kukala wesi. Ndawera ngomene madola mankwala kumakala tikupema ambovutika kupema kapena mapatsi yosiyana mtupi yakainga kusebenza buno bwino, so wakawapeleka kumene mkamba uko mkendo batandiza kuti ayo matenda yasaende pasokolo. So in short, there's no treatment as it were for COVID-19 anywhere in the world as we speak. And so what is happening is that those of our colleagues who get infected, and we must also emphasize at this point that most of the people who get infected with this virus who actually it will self-resolve, so to speak, without any intervention. But there's a small number of people who might have this disease progress, and those are the ones that will require intervention. For example, that they will require help, for example, to breathe in some instances. Some of them will require, that sort of support in an intensive care unit, and those are few cases generally. But once they hit a country like ours, I think that there's need for us to even prepare for those sort of interventions. On the one hand, yes, we are preventing infection coming into the country. Now that we have the infection already with us, we must look at what we're calling mitigation measures. And mitigation measures include those.
All right.
Where
Let's speak Boniface, and let's hear. This is quite a heated conversation. Good evening, Boniface. Thank you for joining us. Hello.
Yes, I have a question.
Please go ahead very quickly with your question.
Yes. For how long the symptoms, or can you know that this one is of the same virus? And what measures are you putting for those who are coming from a neighboring country who are suffering from the same virus? What measures are you putting for you to know that these are virus and these they don't have virus? Because if you say after 14 days, it's when you can notice that this one has this virus. Now, it's very risky. So what measures are you taking? That's what I want to know.
All right, thank you very much. Doc, before you answer, I would love, the conversation to go further. I would love to take a look at the press briefing we had earlier, so people could actually get to the same pace, and later we come back and be able to respond to that question. Let's see Dr. Chitalo Chilufa earlier today.
19 pandemic globally and in Zambia. And I am now a bearer of a message for His Excellency, the Republican President, Dr. Edgar Chakwa Lungu, to inform the nation that Zambia has confirmed its first 2 cases of COVID-19 in a virus. The patients are a Zambian couple that traveled to France on a 10-day holiday with their 2 children. They came back on Sunday and they passed through our international airport, and because of our alert surveillance system, the travel history did pick that they passed through a country where COVID-19 cases were on the rise. For this reason, both the father, the mother, and their 2 children were placed under self-quarantine. 24 hours later, our alert surveillance officers made a follow-up to the couple, and they found them observing the self-quarantine rules, and they did find out that one of the members of the family did develop a fever and a flu. They conducted tests, and the test results were released this morning, and the mother confirmed COVID-19. These parents and the 2 children, like I alluded to earlier, traveled to France on a 10-day holiday and returned.
All right, so that was earlier today in today's press briefing. Oh, Doc, obviously you heard that question. Let's get it clear from you. What exactly is happening?
Yes, so once, like at the airports, for example, and other points of entry, what's expected, and I believe this is what should be happening. By the way, let me very quickly clarify that I am representing the Zambia Medical Association, which is an association that is representing medical doctors. So I'm not necessarily giving a government position, but this is what we know is happening, or is supposed to happen, that when someone arrives at the airport, there's a team of medics who are going to take a history. For example, where they've been, how long they've been there, have they passed through countries, for example, that have got this infection, and so on. And in addition, an examination will be done, particularly of the temperature, to check whether in fact they've got a high temperature or they've got normal temperature. So it's a mixture of both the history which has been taken as well as the finding after the temperature. That determines, there's a criteria that the medics will now use to decide whether someone in fact doesn't have symptoms, or in fact someone requires to be investigated further. If somebody requires to be investigated further, the chances that they will be isolated. They will be taken to a facility where they are isolated if the medics think that this person might have coronavirus. But for those who are arriving at the airport and they do not meet that criteria, but for example they've been to a country which has infection and been exposed, they are undergoing what is called self-quarantine as opposed to isolation. Isolation generally medically refers to individuals who actually have symptoms, and then you're isolating them as you await further mitigation measures and so on. Self-quarantine is for people who have been exposed but they do not have symptoms. And I think this is the situation as explained by the Honorable Minister for the 2 cases that we have. That at the time they arrived at the airport, they did not have symptoms. Yes, they're coming from a country which has an infection. I mean, France now has something like 7,000 or more cases. Wow. Germany has more. So the health personnel knew that in fact this couple was coming from a country that is affected. But the couple at the time of entry, I believe, did not meet the criteria requiring for them to be isolated, as it were. So that is generally what is supposed to be happening. But one must mention that the screening mechanism may not be foolproof. Okay, it may not be foolproof. So there's a small possibility, in fact, that some people may have been missed, which is very, very unlikely, but possible. And so that is why when people have passed through the airport and they've got such a history, they've got to be followed up for a period of 14 days, which the call, I think, was referring to. And during this period, every day, they've got to be in touch. The health personnel need to be in touch with them. to ask about the symptoms, for example, to ask how they are coping within the family environment. Because I can tell you that coping in a family environment when you are quarantined is not easy.
Yeah.
If you look at some of the homesteads where you come from, there's maybe 2 rooms and so on, multiple people living there. That might be an issue. Before another caller, maybe I wanted to, if you allow me, speak also about another important aspect, at least from our side.
I think we already have a caller on the line. Good
We've
evening.
got Billy. Good evening.
Good evening, Billy.
Good evening. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Please go ahead with your contribution or question.
Okay. Doc, I just have a concern. I don't know what measures the government has put in place for this disease. Because, in Zambia, we are used with flus, sore throats and everything. And with the temperature that we were living in, these are very daily diseases we actually face as Zambians, where chimfine, kosomola, kamutu kaba pressure, you know how the economy is, the pressure, the headache, and the flus. It's all over most Makombo. You can't even tell whether it's got a disease or what. What measures or screening measures as the government put in place to identify this one? Probably yes, it could be corona. This one is just a common flu because you're going to have congestion in hospitals. Believe me not. Other generation female or akosomora, they'll be rushing the hospital to go check up in the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks, which means you're going to have hundreds of people in hospitals, and that will cause congestion, of which I believe by then we won't even have a screening, a proper screening method, because we're going to have congestion in hospitals. I don't know. The question is that what type of measures is the government putting on to screen those that we know that probably is proper symptoms? Because everybody's scared right now, so we'll start rushing to the hospitals. Nikosomora, mana and a flu, temperature, aquela, a headache. We're going to have congestion. I don't know what measures the government has put in.
Thank you very much, Billy. And I think just in addition to that, I think what he's exactly trying to say is, in this situation, is it possible that anyone that has symptoms, signs, as the minister, I don't know what the comparison is, signs, symptoms, maybe you could explain that. Is it possible that everybody that could have a sign or a symptom should, be worried? Maybe let me put it that way.
Yes, so
could there be no more coughs?
Yes, at the beginning of this discussion, I think I mentioned the need for the community out there to be calm.
Yeah.
And I think the definition of calm in this case also includes the fact that there are many people out there who have got cough, flu, not the corona type of, not the COVID-19 type of flu that is generally available, which we've had for a long time, and we are suffering from this all the time. The case definition, in other words, the reason for a health provider to suspect that someone might have coronavirus must include not just the symptoms, so to speak, the coughing that they come with or whatnot. It must also include the history. And this is the standard practice in any medical institution, that when you get to a facility, someone must take a history. So if your history matches the signs and symptoms that you present with, then and only then do you become a candidate for further testing. So there should not be panic. I mean, if we asked people around the countryside to come to the hospital just because they've got a flu, I think it would be so overburdened, and that in fact is going to work against the system. That must be avoided.
I think maybe that's something I think people should get to understand is, what is the transfer window like between somebody who has been infected, so that maybe I think another thing is what happens in that case where you could have been in contact with somebody that has the virus. I think also that's another issue that people need to get clarity on. I mean, for those that haven't traveled out, of course, I mean, if it's just a flu, then obviously it just might be a flu. But what happens if they do or come across people that are maybe coming from cross-border towns, or even just somebody who just left the airport?
Yes. So let me speak to the Zambian situation as it stands now. The 2 cases that were announced this morning have got a clear history of travel.
Yeah.
So as we speak now, we do not have any community spread. There are other countries now, like the US, for example, or Italy, Spain, and others, that have disease spreading within the community, even amongst people who haven't traveled outside of the country. That is a different scenario. as things stand, and I hope that things can remain this way for some time, if somebody hasn't traveled out of Zambia, if you have not come in contact with somebody who is coming from an infected area, even if you present with symptoms of flu and so on, you are not likely to be a case definition, and so you are likely to be treated as a common flu, so to speak.
Yeah.
But allow me also to mention very quickly that among the people that are at very high risk of getting this COVID-19 are health workers like ourselves. Because believe it or not, when we have two, for example, cases that have been isolated in Lusaka West, who is there? Health worker.
Yeah.
There's a doctor there, there's a nurse, there's a paramedic, there's someone to clean and whatnot. So I think that as a government, as a country, we must pay particular attention to this group of workers, because they are at high risk, and so they need to make personal protective wear readily available. Talking about gloves, I'm talking here about masks for the health workers. It's important. It's very, very important that these are readily available, and some of the health workers are working in outpatient departments, meeting different sorts of people. I think that it's important to make this sort of thing available. Also, the administrators of these various hospitals, for example, and the other health facilities, need to take interest in the welfare of their workers by way, for example, of providing washing facilities. I don't think that you need a permanent secretary, for example, to get a washing facility at
Doc,
the given
allow me
level.
to pick Chris, who's our last caller for this conversation tonight. Good evening, Chris. Thank you for joining us. Hello.
Please, I'm begging you. I still need my ears to hear you. Please turn down the volume on your television sets, or you don't need to have the volume up to hear yourself speak, okay? You can record it, but please turn down the volume on your sets. Hi, Chris.
Are you able to hear me now?
Fantastic. Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Yes. I wanted to find out how risk are we, those people that handle cash? I don't know, because the cash do pass through different people, of which it might pass through people that might be sick from the same coronavirus. So how risk are those people that handle cash? That's my question.
I think right before you answer that question, there's a song that's been sung on social media, a lot of speculations, even just among us, that black people, talking about the immune system, black people can get the virus, they can get the coronavirus, and also the aspect of, your immune system, children, and I know there are some people who know that fact, but just for that one person who doesn't really know, just kindly clarify the issue of the immune system, and also who's most likely to get it. There's rumors that it's most likely to be the old and the young, and also just generally let people understand that, okay, even if it's a black person, white person, what's the criteria, what's the difference, just for that one person who doesn't really understand.
Thank you. So over the last few weeks, we have learned, for example, that people that have been affected adversely, particularly in places with even stronger health systems, are the elderly. Now you'll be asking me, what does elderly mean? I think that in Zambia we've been saying that 65 and above, the type of people, for example, who can be exempt in medical facilities and so on. There's a blurred boundary. So the older someone is, the higher the chances that they might develop severe symptoms and possibly even die. People living with comorbidities refer to other infections. And in our country, I think we must speak also about HIV. We have quite a significant proportion of Zambian people who are on HIV treatment but who are not suppressed. So if those get infection, there is a good chance that in fact they could progress faster into the severe form of complication. And therefore we should also be talking here about nutrition. I think it's something we haven't heard around. But I think that nutrition is important to ensure that people continue to, eat, a healthy diet, and a healthy diet does not mean meat. A healthy diet also includes vegetables, and we've been hearing stories, for example, of ginger, stories of garlic and things. Much as I cannot be the one here to tell you that ginger or garlic is going to prevent someone from, from getting coronavirus. But we do know that a number of these vegetables and so on are important because they provide immunity to the system, and so that is one of the things that we should encourage people to be sure that they keep fit, they are healthy all the time, in addition to the other mitigation measures that we are commonly hearing about, such as hygiene, such as avoiding handshakes, such as avoiding crowds and so on. I think these have been spoken about, and I also think that we need to speak about these much more.
Yeah.
In order to ensure that some people, as you say, may not have heard about this. You will be, as you said earlier, people will be surprised that there are people who do not even understand what it is we're talking about here. So I think that in public discussions like this, as much as possible, I think we need to bring down the discussion to a level where a common person out there, can understand it. But I also would like to take the opportunity to once again speak to, I think I did this already, allude to the medical profession. I think that as medical professionals, we must be calm. We must not be the ones to panic. If we, the medical professions, panic, the rest of the country will go here. So we must ensure that we provide leadership by not panicking. But at the same time, we also request that government must provide this personal protection equipment to health workers, because they are likely to be the first contacts. Indeed, one of the important matters when it comes to health systems strengthening is human resource. I will tell you that as a country, we have, for example, 300 doctors that are out there who have not been employed for the last maybe 9 months and so on. I do hope that government can take this opportunity to ensure that those doctors are employed so that they act as one of the response mechanisms towards ensuring that there's more people on the ground to attend to these cases. The 2 cases that we have are not likely to be the last. I think the country must understand that. This is what we've seen in other countries. These are not likely to be the last. And so there's a likelihood that, in fact, there will be more cases coming. And so we must prepare wholesomely as a nation to ensure that even when that rise starts, we are able to reduce the peak, so to speak. The CDC in the US, I think, has been talking about, and I think the World Health Organization also has been talking about reducing or flattening the curve, so to speak. People who've been watching television maybe have been seeing a lot of people talking about flattening the curve, meaning that we would like as much as possible not to have so many people get infected. Because if so many people get infected at a time, they are going to overwhelm the infrastructure that we have in our health facilities. And I do not think that we may reach the capacity to, for example, construct facilities such as was done in China in a short period of time. And so the best way to avoid us getting to that level where you have a steep increase in the number of cases is to ensure that the mitigation measures that have been employed by government, I think, must be followed by everybody.
There's a question
without
there,
exception.
quickly, on cash.
Yeah.
On cash. Well, there is...
I think maybe just to add on to that question, I'd like to know, I think maybe this also goes beyond cash, to be honest. What is the lifespan of the virus outside a host? Because what happens if, the surface here, our working areas, the desks, door handles, all of that, those are things, I think it just doesn't end at cash itself. So what is the lifespan also of the host,
Excellent.
of the virus outside a host?
Yes, maybe I can answer both questions by saying this, that the transmission of the COVID is through droplets as we speak, especially if you are close by a meter or so and so on. But these droplets can also stick on surfaces.
Yeah.
The hard surfaces, it's more likely to retain there than softer surfaces. And so the expectation is varied. Obviously, we are getting different sort of information with regard to how long this can last, but certainly not days. And so it's expected that when you are going to touch surfaces that you think other people might have touched them, that you ensure that they are cleaned and so on, avoiding surfaces, ensuring that hands are washed as soon as possible after touching different surfaces. Those are the measures. The reason is that you cannot be sure. You cannot say, for example, this surface was contaminated 4 hours ago, so now it's safe. So we must treat all surfaces as infected and therefore wash. I think that's the message that should go. Instead of speaking to, the same thing happens. The same thing is true for cash.
Yeah.
That if you have handled cash, consider it also.
Keep it in the jacket.
Indeed, sir.
You're eventually going to touch it though.
Yes, you consider it also.
But I'm just
as
wondering,
infected.
the hand sanitizer, how long? I mean, we have an individual today that was using hand sanitizer every after 2 seconds.
I read a journal.
We're wondering, I mean, how does that work?
Well, hand sanitizer is what you would be using in an event that you do not have, for example, a hand washing facility.
Yeah.
Okay, and so that becomes like a second tier of protection, and it should be used obviously the same way that you'd be washing. Can you imagine that every 2 seconds you're washing? It means that you cannot perform, you cannot do anything.
Yeah.
So similarly, when you've touched things, for example, you think that those are the conditions. So you can't certainly.
And at some point, I know some people feel, hand sanitizer is enough, but is it really enough? At some point, if you do come across water and soap, should you also just wash your hands? Because I know the sanitizer also piles on. I don't know if everyone has ever been through this. When you use sanitizer, maybe even if for an hour, you're somewhere, obviously you've got no access to water, and when you actually get to wash your hands, the dirt also that comes out from your hands is something else. So should people also be encouraged to wash their hands with soap and not just rely on sanitizer?
Well, as you rightly say, sanitizers usually leave some greasy sort of feeling on your hands and so on. So it's a second tier kind of preventive measure.
Yeah.
I think the recommended one is to wash our hands as often as possible, and obviously in the absence of water, immediately that hand sanitizers will come in place. And they've been used, and sanitizers have been used, and they are very useful even in hospitals, for example. When you're moving from one patient to the next in an event, that's the message that should be sent out to the public. Wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands.
All right.
To the government, it's tests.
Test. Okay, but before we let him go, this was an interesting topic. I know, just the last one. The men with beards. I was reading somewhere that they need to also clean their beard or make sure that it's thoroughly clean. Is it possible? I'll just shave it off. But no, I don't encourage that. But is it possible for the virus to live in the beard as well?
I think so. But to say that people should shave off and so on.
Or at least just as they're washing hands.
For me, I think cleaning.
Cleaning,
Cleaning is what would be. Ideally, I think we should not disturb the normal lifestyle.
Yeah.
I think that the moment we begin to do that, we cause a lot of panic and we send wrong messages. And then may I also just lastly say that the public out there must not listen to unconfirmed is it fake news? I think that's a popular term. I think that government, for example, has indicated that it will be issuing daily or at least updates, and that those updates will be through a press conference like the one we saw today. And I do hope that government can stick to its word and ensure that we are able to get authentic messages. And you I made with regard to considering locking down some of our borders, particularly to individuals that are coming from areas where there is communal spread of the virus. I think that's one of the things we should be doing. In addition, of course, to ensure that we improve our human resource to tackle this problem. If we have doctors out there, as I said, on the street and so on, I think that it's an opportunity to get them into the system so that they can help to fight this pandemic. We need all hands on board as it is.
I want to know, so, I'm sorry. No, I've seen this. No, I've been seeing this also in a lot of groups. I think in 4 groups now. Homemade sanitizer, methylated spirit and glycerin. I think it's like 10 mils versus 30 mils or something like that. Does that actually make a sanitizer?
To my knowledge, that's not recommended. I think that I would ask people to buy recommended hand sanitizers which have been tested and proven to be protective.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Doc, for coming, and we hope that you have been rightly informed. But you can keep sending us messages on Facebook, keep calling us. We want to get a whole lot of questions for you. But still, coming up, we're talking Bill 10, suspended indefinitely.
Welcome back to Diamond Live. So we hope you got as much information as you could. Now, earlier on today, there was a press briefing that was being held at UPND President Hakainde Hichilema's residence. And there was the media and members of parliament from the UPND. And so some organizations, one organization, for example, the Zambia Agency for Persons with Disabilities, converged. About 60 persons with disabilities went to HH's home because they have got an article within that bill number 10 that is favoring proportional representation, mixed proportional representation, which to some extent favors persons with disabilities. So they were trying to engage the UPND leader to see how best they can help as the UPND. And so they tried to do that, but unfortunately things didn't go as planned. Apparently they were beaten. I know.
Wow.
I know. And I'll let Juliette Mwape speak for herself because she was part of the team, and she's going to explain to us.
Engaging different political leaders, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are going to vote for this bill, and what you're interested in is what you've stated, but it's going nowhere without the engagement of the political leaders. So how are you engaging them to see that your agenda is successful?
Thank you for that question. Today we took the initiative. I think there were over 60 persons with disabilities. We saw that President Hichilema was having a press conference at his residence. And we said, well, maybe we are speaking from afar. Let us go to him. Let us go and show him that we are an existent population. We are not a fabrication or just a few individuals with disabilities that are running around and looking for positions. No. We wanted him to see the reality, that this is actually there. And these people are human and they need rights. We want to engage, to talk. There's nothing that we can do to President Hichilema and his members of parliament. They are able-bodied after all. They can do anything to us. The vulnerable party, when we went, was us, because we went. The security people will tell you, we went without security. It was just persons with disabilities. There was no police. We didn't even alert the police. We didn't even alert anyone because we thought we were going to human beings, to people. And we went. We arrived at the gate. The guard told us, no, you are not able to see him today because of what's going on in Parliament. He's had a rough time. He didn't sleep last night. So please give him a break. We told the guard, this is a person who is vying for leadership, meaning he's a father to all of us, including us. He's our father. And we need to talk to him because we've seen that there is a problem. But we want to bring to reality what we feel firsthand to him, to tell him that, look, this is not about politics. We are here to tell you that this is a right that we need to enjoy. The guard immediately said, can you call the SG to come? He told another security man from the inside. So this gentleman went, and all of us got off the vehicles. Others even were sleeping on the beautiful lush grass outside his fence. We were relaxed because we knew that, the spirit of Ubuntu, the Zambian spirit, cannot allow a person to turn on another person without cause. So we sat out there in expectation that here is the leader who enjoys a lot of support amongst the Zambian population, probably even amongst ourselves as persons with disabilities. He commanded support. We waited. If we were fearful, we would have called the police and said, please, we don't know where we are going. But we went alone. And when we sat, the next thing we saw were violent security guards They came out, we were going to kill people here. Get out. You've been paid. Do you want Lungu to stay in office for 7 years? We were taken aback. Where did this come from? If we had known that this is where you came, we wouldn't have allowed you to even get off the vehicles. Get out. Start your vehicles. Get out. Start moving. And this gentleman picked up stones. Defenseless, disabled people who went to have a conversation with one of the most popular opposition leaders and his members of parliament. In this country, I never saw that coming. They were all over, the security people. They made sure they just move. They actually stoned a lady and she started bleeding. This is a person with a disability. Now, to me, it's like a child comes to you. You are an adult. If you don't like this child, or they are disturbing your peace, or you have more important things to do, there are always civil ways of handling things. You don't take the dogs out, like the security people that he told to attend to us. Right now, we have a very different perception of him.
So does that mean that you're not willing anymore to engage with him or his members of parliament?
Where do we start from? Do we want to get killed? Jonah, we are vulnerable people. We are very vulnerable, defenseless. We can only talk. Now, if those big people can throw stones at us, why would you want to risk our lives? To me, it's just, he's not interested in the 1.7 million vote. That's our population for that matter. He's not interested. He's not interested in looking at a person with a disability as a person. Probably the disability clouds everything else around us.
The reality is that his political party, the UPND, has got a number of members of parliament in the House, numbers which you need for this cause. So are you just going to let it go like that? Let that opportunity slide just like that?
I'll tell you something. We are in a Christian nation, and there's a God who sees. That's what I'll tell you. There is a God who sees. They may have the numbers. I'm not trying to put a curse on anyone. They may have the numbers, but there's a God who sees. If how we were treated today was fair, there was a God who was watching. And he will give us what we deserve. We never went to provoke. We just went to have a discussion. And I don't think God is interested in making us beg, because we are human like anybody else. So if the treatment we got today is an indication of their numbers and their leadership, we would like to say no, we are not going back. We are not going to engage. Because putting those people, those security people, threatening to kill us is not something that anybody wants. I mean, I have a life, just like he is. Who never knows? Years from now, Zambia will have a disabled president. So why should I sacrifice myself because someone else wants to be president? No.
So what is the way forward? What are you going to do now?
Right now, we know what to do. We know what to do. We have voters' cards, so we know what to do.
Does that mean that, so in the meantime, does that mean that you will not pursue any further, the mixed member representation in that bill? Because it is an important part that you want to achieve.
We are hoping that the members of parliament that have seen the humaneness in that provision will support us. And that's where we leave it. Those who feel that we are lesser people will do what happened at the UPND leaders' house. To the extent a helpless, disabled woman, to me, it speaks for itself. If I, a person with a disability, cannot feel free before a leader, I don't know how you people who are able-bodied should even be comfortable. They are dangerous times ahead.
So yeah, that's the conversation that I had with Julian Mwape at the office. Well, because initially the conversation we were having was in relation to the mixed member proportional representation in Parliament. It's something that they've been driving towards. But it seems, I mean, and the reality is without the members of Parliament of the UPND, it's almost impossible for them to do it. They need some of those members of the UPND to be able to do it. So hence the decision to go and try to speak with them. But it seems, she says, it's not going to be possible because they're not willing to go back there. They didn't speak with any of the UPND officials. They spoke with the security guard at the gate of HH's residence. And so the security guard apparently assured them that he was going to go and get the Secretary General of the United Party for National Development, but instead came back with more security officers who bundled them up and stunned them away. And told them to leave in those vehicles.
I personally would love to hear whether Secretary General or any senior member of the UPND actually heard or knew that these people were at the entrance. I certainly do not think or feel that any well-meaning politician leader would actually bundle up people that need to be heard in such a manner. I mean, there's been a lot of grievances around the mixed member proportional representation, and I do know that there's been some members of Parliament from the UPND that actually support this particular clause because it talks about how many youth, women, and the differently abled will be in Parliament. But the disagreements, of course, has been around certain clauses and not everything. So pretty much maybe this is where, and this is, I think, what we really needed to get clear from. And I'd love to hear from Hakainde Hichilema himself. Did he know that those people were the entrance, really?
It doesn't sound like they knew. I mean, it just seems
well,
like...
I think what she was explaining is what happened, because she cannot explain whether or not they knew. Exactly. She's explaining what happened outside. And regardless of whatever the case, I think whoever was responsible for that is also just quite irresponsible. And I also do understand that a lot of people do get quite excited, especially security.
Especially if they've been given strict details, like, okay, don't allow anybody in. If it's no at that point, it's no, I've closed the gates, nobody's allowed to come in. You know how security guards get once they've got that law of command. It's like, okay, now let's do it. So I think it just ended in the line of the security guards. I don't think it went past as, somebody in the secretariat getting word that these people are at the gate. I don't think they would do that. Sounds a bit too dramatic.
Yeah. It's not dramatic, it happened.
I mean, what I mean by it sounds a bit too dramatic is for the UPND members to allow something like that to happen. That's where the little too dramatic is coming from.
But would the security personnel make their own decision? Well, that is another question to ask.
But you see also, I mean, when you try to look at it, if there's an event like that, here, I'm just thinking, there's a lot of people. It's very unlikely that a security guard will come and address me.
It's very unlikely.
Most likely. Most of them will just come, Paibantu, but it's not going to come.
Yeah. Very busy, okay.
Dick.
Bakana. No, I mean...
But that's exactly what happens, though.
Yeah. It happens.
Well, we're all speaking. None of us was inside to see whether the security guard that was told actually went there.
Yeah.
No, I didn't say that's what happened. I said
no. And that is why I'm saying you guys are being overzealous because you can't speculate that.
But we should be able to wonder. We're trying to make sense of the situation.
Were not there.
Why would the UPND members chase away people with disabilities that have gone to air out their views? They've gone to discuss, to settle, to talk. So it just sounds, I don't know, it could have just ended at the security guards. I don't think it went beyond.
But if it did, it's very unfortunate.
Yeah,
if it did, then it's a very unfortunate incident. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we give you highlights of some of the stories making news.
Form King boasts itself in being a leading foam manufacturer that has a significant contribution in providing quality guaranteed mattresses and other foam products. We are major suppliers to national institutions such as hospitals, schools, hotels, lodges, and other established wholesale and retail organizations. Form King utilizes only high-quality raw materials sourced from leading suppliers. Our high-quality fabrics are especially made of our mattresses and precision carpentry skills coupled with advanced tech machinery to meet all your needs. Visit our head office on plot 6300 Kabundi Road off Mumbwa Road. .com.zm. Call us on plot 211 866. Visit our Ndola office on plot 3084 Nakambala Road. Email us at sales.ndl@formking.com.zm or call us on +260 212 651 130 or 650 158. Visit our website on www.formking.com.zm. Form King, our secret to a good night's sleep.
Heading straight into a news summary for tonight. Parliament has adjourned to Sene Die due to the coronavirus pandemic, which has hit the country. Zambia has so far of the virus since its outbreak. In making the ruling, Speaker of the National Assembly Patrick Matibini says this is as a result of the two statutory instruments that government has come up, which bars gatherings of more than 50 people. And UPND Mazabuka Member of Parliament Gary Nkombo says the UPND has received the ruling with a pinch of salt.
My ruling, as regards the point of order by Honorable Minister from Mchinga Province, I indicated in my response that it will become apparent later in the day what had been taken to address the issue of the coronavirus, which was the subject of his point of order. Honorable members, following consultations with relevant public offices concerning the coronavirus pandemic, a decision has been reached in order to deal with the concerns raised in the points of order by Honorable J.J. Mwimbu and the Honorable Minister of Mchinga Province promptly. I therefore wish to call upon Her Honor the Vice President. Her Honor the Vice President. I honor the Vice President. Just a minute for people to settle down. Order. I honor the Vice President.
Mr. Speaker, in accordance with Standing Orders 33-1 of the National Assembly Standing Orders 2016, and in view of the coronavirus pandemic, I beg to move that the House do now adjourn. Senator.
The question is that in accordance with Standing Order 33-1 of the National Assembly of Zambia, Standing Orders 2016, and in view of the coronavirus pandemic, the House do now adjourn sine die. Honor the Vice President.
Mr. Speaker, on 13th March 2020, the Minister of Health issued two statutory instrument numbers 21 and 22, restricting public mass gatherings and mandating social distancing in order to prevent the coronavirus infections in the country. In this regard, all organizations and institutions within the country have been directed to reschedule public events or use technology to advance their agenda. In addition, all schools, including primary, secondary, and tertiary institutions, have been ordered to close by Friday, 20th March 2020. Mr. Speaker, members of this House are not immune to the virus. It is therefore important that the House adjourns in accordance with the directives of the Ministry of Health and the law. Sir, this is a straightforward motion, and I request the House to support it. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move.
Accept that, and we are hopeful that as soon as the situation of the coronavirus starts to stabilize, then we will have to know the status of the matter in court, whether we can still go in and deal with Bill 10 or not. But I think we have a sigh of relief because the search for one member has now come to an end by the PF. They have failed to garner the last member that they wanted in order for them to pass this obnoxious bill. And so the public can tell whether this is just a coincidence or it is a matter that was actually articulated.
How do you take it yourself?
I take it with a pinch of salt, but that's how life.
A Zambian couple whose identity has been withheld has tested positive for the coronavirus. Health Minister Chitali Chilufya has told journalists that the couple went to France for a holiday via Emirates, where they possibly contracted COVID-19. The minister says the patients are currently quarantined and are responding well to treatment. He adds that while COVID-19 preventive measures are being scaled up, Zambia will not be on lockdown. World over, the coronavirus has now infected more than 20,000 people and killed more than 8,000 people. Almost 80,000 people have recovered from the infection.
What most Zambians feared from a distance because it was tormenting nations beyond our borders has become a reality within Zambia. Zambia has confirmed its first 2 cases of the coronavirus. Minister of Health Chitali Chilufya says a Zambian couple who traveled to France for a 10-day holiday tested positive for the COVID-19.
Zambia has confirmed its first 2 cases of COVID-19 in the virus. The patients are a Zambian couple that traveled to France on a 10-day holiday with their 2 children.
The mortality rate for the coronavirus on a global scale is at 2%, and Dr. Chitali Chilufya says Zambians should not panic as the patients have been adequately quarantined and are responding well to treatment. But Zambians feel that the minister should do more.
And my concern mainly is like people who are staying in compounds. In one house, one-room house, they stay 5 people. How is it possible for those people to quarantine themselves? How possible will that be? That won't be possible. So the government needs to sensitize the people more on the prevention of this virus.
Sini sure kuti still more we are safe. Still more anyone among us we are not really safe. But chamene vakangi wache kuti vangavare ma interest munga yama airport. Or my many my international towards yaya chamene sivangavalirepo nichani because apa bakamba kuti ise maschool stivale but tiona kuti iyo matenda siyachokera mwatu muno.
While Zambia's capacity to contain the pandemic may be debatable, one thing for sure is that cooperating partners have pledged their support.
To express our solidarity as a UN family, and I'm sure I can talk on behalf of cooperating partners, our solidarity with the government of Zambia and with the people of Zambia. We are here to support and to stay and deliver in any way possible.
Despite its downside, the coronavirus will spike the fast-moving consumable goods sector now that the 2 cases have been confirmed in Zambia, as people will try to buy as much as they can to avoid human contact. This bulk buying has triggered demand for things like face masks and sanitizers. A check by Diamond News found that prices of face masks and sanitizers have been increased, something the Competition and Consumer Protection Commission should keep an eye on lest consumers be exploited. Another sector that will benefit from the 2 confirmed cases is telecommunications, as people will now purchase more data to keep tabs on the COVID-19, giving rise to e-commerce in Zambia. While Minister Chilufya has maintained that Zambia won't be on lockdown, stringent measures must be put on Zambia's porous border posts to ensure that this pandemic is curbed. Diamond TV News, Winston Mavor.
Earlier, Speaker of the National Assembly, Patrick Matibini, suspended debate on the Constitution Amendment Bill 10 so as to allow him to study a point of order on the Constitutional Court's petition in which former Commerce Minister Deepak Patel wants government to explain why they have been breaching the 2016 law on contraction of public debt. According to the 2016 Constitutional Amendment, it is a mandatory legal requirement in Article 63 for National Assembly to approve public debt. Mr. Patel has, however, observed that since this amendment, the Office of the Finance Minister has been abrogating this law. He has also argued that the Office of the Attorney General should have been presenting necessary bills for the approval of the National Assembly on contraction of debt. Raising on a point of order, Mazabuka Central Member of Parliament, Gary Nkombo, wanted to know whether the House would be in order to debate the Constitution Amendment Bill number 10 when it is a subject of active petition in court. Mr. Nkombo has cited the Constitutional Court ruling which found Mr. Speaker in breach of the law for declaring the Ron parliamentary seat, which was held by Dr. Chishimba Kambwili vacant, without waiting for the interpretation of the court.
Former Commerce Minister Deepak Patel has petitioned the Constitutional Court over government's move to procure public debt without the approval of the National Assembly as required by law. Mr. Patel has cited the Minister of Finance Wale Ngandu and Attorney General Ricardo Kalaluka as the first and second respondent in the matter. In his petition, Mr. Patel says the refusal by the respondents to obtain prior approval from the National Assembly before approving and signing any debt agreement or instrument is illegal and a breach of the Constitution. The approval is therefore in breach of the consent legislation or gazette not dealing with the debt procurement or present to the National Assembly within 14 days of the judgment of the court or within the time frame that the court will prescribe. Once the judgment is delivered, Mr. Patel wants an order directing that from the date of the judgment, all public debt, whether local or foreign, sought to be contracted on behalf of the government must be presented to the National Assembly for prior approval. But since the amendment of the Constitution in 2016, the respondents have up to date not sought any approval from the National Assembly prior to signing loan agreements for contracting local and foreign public debt. Mr. Patel says the true debt position of the Republic of Zambia is not known because the correct figures of how much debt has been contracted since 2016 have never been provided to the National Assembly or to the public. According to the 2016 Constitutional Amendment, it is a mandatory legal requirement in Article 63, subsection 2D, for National Assembly to approve public debt. Outside the courts, Mazabuka Central Member of Parliament, Gary Nkombo, raised a point of order wanting to know whether the House would be in order to debate the Constitutional Amendment Bill number 10 when it is a subject of an active petition in court. This resulted into the Speaker to put deliberation on hold to allow him study the matter and thereby making a ruling on the matter. Rodam Vola, Damu News.
Those are stories making news in our summary for tonight's show. However, don't forget that we'll be right back and we'll be reading your text messages.
What word is this? What are you doing?
I'm helping Mom make home safe.
What do you mean by making home safe?
I help Mom do the housework. Mom always washes the fruit and covers the food. Mom makes sure I wash my hands every time after I use the toilet and before I touch any food. Mom uses Chloripure to keep our drinking water safe.
Chloripure is safe and easy to use. Read the instructions on the bottle for proper use and wait for 30 minutes before drinking the water. Use Chloripure correctly and consistently all year round. That way you'll be able to protect your family from waterborne diseases. Chloripure is now available in pharmacies, chemists, and retail outlets at an affordable price. Make your drinking water pure with Chloripure.
This message is brought to you by the USAID Discover Health Project with support from the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, from the American people.
Stay happier with DSTV's 2020. All you have to do is pay for your DSTV subscription and you get up to 42% discount. What's more, you get upgraded to the next package.
At one?
Just pay for your current package and get upgraded to the next package. With DSTV, even when times are tough, we got you.
For you, I can do anything.
Now, that's 2020. DSTV. Feel every moment. T's and C's apply.
There is a core belief at the heart of Liquid Telecom. The belief that every individual has the right to be connected. The pursuit of this vision has seen us build the largest independent fiber network in Africa. From Cape to Cairo, we are connecting more of Africa. Liquid Telecom, building Africa's digital future.
Come back to Diamond Live. So before we get to go back into our caves, and just, stay away from the crowds in the world, we want to take a look at some of the messages that you've been sending through tonight on Diamond Live. And these are some of them. The worry is the worry. What are you guys having in Zambia is now hit, and the virus may start spreading to other parts of the country. All the health facilities in Zambia capable of detecting the virus will be wiped off as rural dwellers. I doubt that it might reach the rural parts, but it's very unlikely. Unless you see the difference with the coronavirus. It's not like cholera or anything. It's actually the urban people that are bringing it. It's the people with money that can afford to go on holiday somewhere and come back. That's where the disease. It's no longer about it's mainly coming from
Mayadi.
It's coming from there. That's where it's coming from, because they're the ones that, in any case, even if you don't travel, they're usually the ones that have contact with people that have traveled.
Yeah.
Like tourists or stuff like that. So they're the ones that are responsible for this one. But let's take a look at the other messages. But I mean, at the end of the day, even if it comes in your area as rural dwellers, you won't get coronavirus if you take the precautions. And I know you can let your guard down for a second, but just make sure that you stay
Evening,
safe.
Doc, and the panel, please make sure you check out these nursing colleges. They have refused to release the third-year students. Please.
The same ones who are dancing.
No, but obviously that person is coming from somewhere. They've definitely cut.
We need to investigate that one.
Yeah, exactly. Why we shouldn't doubt it? Because
I'm just shocked. I'm just shook. It's millennial terms.
Because they were celebrating after the news was released, so a decision probably was made later. But it shouldn't be the case because that was a directive by the government, the Ministry of Health, together with the Ministry of Higher Education and the Ministry of General Education, made it very clear that the schools must close, and this must be done. It's
by Friday, all schools.
There was a fake story. There was a fake story that was running in the morning that one of the universities in Lusaka, no pun intended, was not gonna close.
Yeah.
Which personally, the moment I saw it, I knew it was a lie. So just to confirm, I picked up my phone and I called the university, and they said that's very unfortunate. But after they said that, I came back and I started looking at the same statement, and I was just like, you know what? I didn't even have to do that. All I needed was to read this carefully. It was because I was reading it and correcting the grammar myself. When I was going through, I was like, it is so bad. Then I was like,
that it can't come from the uni.
There was no stamp. There was nothing. The stamp. I know Zambians love stamps,
they can
but
duplicate that.
That's when it looks authentic. I mean, I actually saw the original one because there was actually a stamp on it. And
there was a statement later that was released just to clarify that the students are going home, and they should, because it's a very dire situation, especially now that we've got confirmed cases of coronavirus in the country. Let's finally take a look at the other messages as we get to say good night.
Good evening, Diamond. Let's pray to God for protection.
And we should stay clean.
As a country at large, politics aside, I am Malaya Brian in Lundazi.
I think it's better for you to just take the precaution.
No need God to remind you to wash your hands.
I mean, in Italy is like the home of a lot of Christians.
The city of God.
400 people have died today. In one day.
From
the coronavirus.
Are street vendors allowed to sell given the situation?
Good question.
Are we going to be tested as we enter each town at bus stations? And that is coming from William in Kawe.
I know that now people are being tested to walk beyond Nakonde. And I hope that that's being reflected in all the other borders. However, obviously it could be a lot better. But this is a disaster that a lot of other countries are grappling with at the moment.
Yeah.
The best we can do, and I keep emphasizing, the best we can do as individuals, we are the best protection for ourselves. I know you can, it's almost impossible to completely protect yourself, but just as much as you can do. Just as much as you can do. If you can do the most to protect yourself,
get the masks,
then go ahead.
Get the sanitizer,
get the mask if you've got a flu or something like that,
Well, pretty much, I think we have heard.
My message up, boy. Just like that.
Thank you for tuning in to tonight's edition of Diamond. I don't know what's going on. Okay. Thank you for tuning in to Diamond Live tonight. We obviously are not going to be able to read all the messages, but thank you for sending them, and I hope that we're able to scroll down there. My name is Jonah.
My name is Malama.
I'm Chichi Daisy.
I'm Chisu.
Good night.
Good night.
Diamond TV, television reinvented.
Everybody listen up! You know how they say laughter's the best medicine? Well, it's also timeless, like these grown-ups taking a trip down memory lane. Maybe not so grown-up. I've also heard people saying that life is a comedy to those who think like a man. See what I did there? Stay connected for more hilarious moments all the way from Swamp World. Aren't they the cutest? We're here to keep you laughing your apples off. Go TV. Live it, love it.
Woi, lero tikumbula tigoni zona. Woi, nisha ukanka mais. Nuna njala ngala pa haiti. Mongali kata tizeo. Ndaulo samba kumanja kulibe. Hygienic Spanish.